Kaixo, ongi etorri, bienvenidos, and welcome to the Immigrant All Around with your host, Esther Ciganda. Kaixo, hey, hola, and welcome to episode 000, the intro episode to the Immigrant All Around with me. And this is going to be the episode that I kind of tell you a little bit about what the Immigrant All Around podcast is going to be about, and who am I and why am I qualified to talk about the topic. So basically, my why behind this whole show began in February of 2020. I was driving to work and bling, right in my head, I was like, I want to do a podcast. And I want to do a podcast about immigrants. You might be wondering, well, why? Well, both my parents are immigrants. I'm a proud daughter of immigrants, and I've always just enjoyed listening to stories of different immigrants around the world. And I want to create a place to showcase the individual stories of people that have had to move to new countries by necessity or by choice. But I want them to talk about their language learning experiences. I want them to share the positives and the negatives, the wins and the losses, and the life lessons that they have, acquired in their own personal journeys. And I want them to share it with us, the listeners. So, as I told you, I am the daughter of immigrants. My parents immigrated to the United States, to the state of Washington, and they came separately. They have their own unique and different stories, which I will let them tell in their own personal interviews. But being raised in the state of Washington by immigrants, as a child, I knew we were different. My brother and I were different. We had a different language at home. We ate different things. We had different cultures. We had different customs. We would get together with others that were similar to us, other immigrants and immigrants' children, and we enjoyed different things. And, I had two very distinct experiences. I had my school culture, English at school, my friends at school, but I also had a different language outside of school, which was the home language, which was Spanish. And then we had all the different events and festivals that was part of our culture. So it was an amazing upbringing and something that I still continue to this day in celebrating my culture that, I inherited because of my parents that are immigrants. So born in the U.S., my first language is Spanish. I started learning English when I was in, around when I was 5 years old. And sure, I was exposed to it before then, but officially I didn't start learning it until I was 5. So, I don't recall any struggles. I remember there were report cards that used to say I used to struggle with learning a language, but I acquired, little kids are sponges, so I learned right away, didn't have any difficulties. I was mainstreamed. There was no ELL classes that I know of. So, I transitioned quickly. We also had a third language at home that my mother did not speak, but my dad did know, which was the Basque language. And I was also very passionate about learning this heritage language of mine. And I was able to fulfill that dream of mine in 2011 when I went to a Barnetegi, which is a Basque school, which is full immersion. And I did that in the Basque country. And now I'm proud enough to say that I am a Euskaldun Berri, which is a new Basque learner, and I'm able to speak and converse with anyone in the Basque country or in different Basque communities in the Basque diaspora. My fourth language is French, which I learned as being an immigrant myself. I immigrated to France 6 years ago, and I did that by choice. It wasn't by necessity. I wanted to go on the adventure to the area where my parents came from. It wasn't the exact area, but being raised on a farm, which you'll hear in a second, I wanted to live near the ocean. So that's why I chose the area where I'm at. And I found a place to live in France. So that's where I ended up living. Didn't know the language, so I knew it was going to be different. And I also didn't have a French passport. I had a Spanish passport. So I had to figure out I am going to have to do a lot to make sure that I was doing things legally. So quite an adventure for myself, but very different than when you're doing it by choice than when you're doing it by necessity. I'm also a veteran teacher. This is my 23rd year in the classroom. I'm a biologist by trade. My degree's in biology. I also have minors in chemistry and Spanish. So I'm very multi-passionate, and I've taught a lot of different things. I've taught biology, I've taught chemistry, I've taught physical science, I've taught all levels of Spanish, starting from Spanish 1 all the way through AP Spanish. I've also taught AESB leadership, I've taught link crew, I've been department head, I have coached all kinds of sports, I've also been a science Olympiad coach, and now I've been living in, Europe, and I've been teaching English for the last 6 years. And I've been teaching Basque online to learners all around the world. So definitely multi-passionate. And I'm an avid sports fan. Not only do I enjoy watching sports, but I love playing sports. And now I'm really active with the United States Federation at Pelota Vasca. And as I said earlier, a lot of my own fulfillment in life is being raised on a farm. Like everything I've learned about life comes from that farm life. And that's something my parents do to this day. So really proud to be a daughter of immigrants and also to be a farm girl. So let's get back to the podcast. The podcast is going to focus on the stories of people who have moved to different countries. And like I said, it's going to be either focusing on those who have made the decision by choice or those who have had to move to a country by necessity. We'll let them tell their story. And what I'm going to be asking are different questions in relationship to like, what languages have they had to learn, in their move? What memories do they have of language learning? Like I said, me being a daughter of immigrants, I don't recall learning English at school. And I do have a memory now of having to learn French in France, but I have done that not necessarily by necessity, but more because I was challenged by the fact that someone said to me, like, how is it that you live in France and you don't speak French? And it was like, well, because I do know Spanish, I do know English, and I do know Basque, I'm able to get away with it, but I took on that challenge and I am able to speak French now, probably about an A2 level, which is, very basic French, but I'm able to, move around and get away with doing things like donating blood, going to the dentist, using my French. So I want people to share that. Like, what have their struggles been when learning a language in a new country? I want them to talk about like specific experiences in the new country. Anything that they were willing to share with us. What life lessons have they learned? What advice or suggestions do they have to us, the listeners, about moving to a new country? So why I'm truly excited for this is not only to showcase the stories of individuals that maybe I don't know who they are yet, but I want to give a voice first to my parents. I want to document their stories. So that kind of gives light to who I am because it's thanks to them. I am the person that I am. I have learned to never be afraid. I'm not afraid to move to different places. I'm not afraid to try new things. Failure for me was never an option. I watched my parents work their butts off to succeed in a country that wasn't their own, where they didn't have the language. They had to learn everything, how to do things in a new culture, make new friends. And I saw them work their butts off not to fail. And that's the person that I am. I do not accept failure. And if I make a mistake or if I do fail, guess what? I'm going to make sure to learn from any of the mistakes that I have made, adjust, and move on in order to succeed. And that's my goal, is I want to honor them. This podcast is in their honor to my parents and also to any other immigrants who have raised children like myself in other countries that wasn't their home country, or as my dad would say, the old country. And I really want to, invite others around the world to come on to my podcast and to share their language challenges in a new country. And I hope that they accept my invitation, because this podcast is for you. this is the home where I want you to share your story, and I want to document that. And I guess you, the listener, if you are an immigrant and you are willing to share your story, I welcome you to, sign up and fill out that podcast form to be a guest on the show. Or if you're not an immigrant, but you know someone who else is, invite them. Or better yet, if you're willing, nominate them. But please ask for their permission so, we don't get them by surprise and they're like, I'm too afraid to do it. But I will make sure that this is a positive experience for them, for myself, and for you. And before I end today's episode of episode 000, and I want to say thank you for showing up and listening to this episode. And I invite you to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes of other immigrants around the world. Until next time, ayo. You've been listening to the Immigrant All Around podcast, the show dedicated to the immigrant stories around the world. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. Ayo.